Dear students, welcome to biology class. In this class, we shall be discussing about ecology and environment. It is one of the very interesting chapters, but due to COVID restrictions, two of the chapters of this unit are been deleted. So, we shall be dealing with what we are left with. Let us read about the basic concepts of ecology. Ecology is defined as the study of relationship of living organisms with their environment. What do we mean by environment? Environment is the sum total of all the external conditions affecting the life, development and evolution of an organism and its natural habitat. The term ecology was derived from oikos, which means home, and logos, study of organisms in relation to their home. And what we mean by home here is their surrounding, and what we understand by the surrounding is the environment. Reiter is referred to as the father of ecology, whereas Ramdeo Misra is referred to as father of Indian ecology. If we see to the branches of ecology, basically we shall divide it to two branches, autecology and synecology. Autecology deals with the study of reciprocal relationships between every steps of development of population or species and its environment. In brief, we can say it is the study of population, and what we mean by population is development of individuals of one species, only one species in a given area at a given time. Similarly, the second branch of ecology is synecology, that deals with the study of reciprocal relationships between composition, organization and development of communities and their environment. And what we mean by community is a group of populations. Several species will make several populations together in a given area at a given time will be the community. Similarly, if we see to the ecological hierarchy, we shall see that there is interaction among organisms and between organisms and its physical environment, and ecology is concerned with 4 levels of organizations. And if we see the hierarchy, the simplest one is the individual or organism, followed by population, a group of organisms of one individual species, followed by community. Community is a group of populations. So, we shall have several different species that may have animal species, that may have plant species, that may have microbial species, and finally, the biomes. Biomes are at a larger area, it will be covering several ecosystems in a given area. Similarly, we have ecosystems, we have biosphere, that we shall be discussing after some time. So, if we consider the individual or the organism, it is the living component of the environment at individual level. It is the smallest level of ecological hierarchy. Here we see that beyond this there is no existence. Organism is the smallest unit, and organisms together of one type or of different type will make different ecological hierarchy. Then we shall come to the population. It is defined as the sum total of all individuals of one species in a given area. Individuals of a species can interbred among themselves. What we mean by that is there can be sexual reproduction among them, producing fertile individuals. That means they can again breed among themselves. Like the biological species, they share the same gene pool. From ecological point of view, we just do not represent it with the interbreeding organisms but we take them as asexually reproducing ones also. Then the third level of organization in the hierarchy, we shall have communities. Communities is a group of populations of different species living in the same area and interacting with each other like plants, animals, bacteria, fungi, etc. Then comes a larger one, we say as the biomes, a large regional unit delimited by a specific climate zone having a particular vegetation zone and associated fauna. When we say a large area having a particular type of climate, that will obviously have a specific type of vegetation and related fauna also. Depending upon the type of vegetation and climate, the fauna of the area will be decided. Like we shall say tundra as a biome, tundra as a biome, desert biome, temperate deciduous forest, like that. Then we shall come to the ecosystem. It is a segment of nature consisting of biological community and its physical environment, both interacting and exchanging materials as well as energy. So, what we understand here, we shall have several communities. We shall have several communities that includes animals, plants, microorganisms, etc. So, they together make the living component. They are interrelated with each other and they together or separately are interacting with the physical environment, and simultaneously there is exchange of material, cycling of material as well as flow of energy, that makes it a self-sustaining one. We classify ecosystem basically to terrestrial ecosystem, that we can say also as land ecosystem, and aquatic ecosystem, that can further be branched as we can do like grassland ecosystem, crop ecosystem, and estuarine ecosystem, marine ecosystem, river ecosystem, like that. Then we shall come to the biggest in the hierarchy, that is biosphere. The word biosphere was coined by Eduard Suess in 1875, which is the place of, it is the place of earth surface where life dwells. All ecosystems of the world are collectively included in the biosphere. So, if we see the biosphere, this entire world is not having living components in every place. We have places where there is volcanic eruption and the temperature is far above a living system can sustain. And there are places also where the temperature is too less, which can sustain also a living system. So, leaving these areas, rest of the area of the surface of the earth that may be having water or that may be having land, they can sustain ecosystems and they together make the biosphere. Then we shall come to discuss about habitat and niche. By habitat, any of you can say where we live is our habitat. Yes, it is a place where an organism or community lives. It represents a set of environmental conditions for the successful growth of organism. It describes the totality of abiotic factors to which species is exposed in an area like marine habitat, terrestrial habitat, etc. Then we shall discuss about the niche. It is defined as a special place in organism has in a community with relation to its food and enemies. It is an inclusive term that includes not only the physical space occupied by an organism, but also its functional role in the community. Habitat is the address of an organism whereas niche gives the address of profession, address and profession of the organism. As we have discussed, the environment comprises of several abiotic and biotic factors, which will have direct influence on them. So, when plants and animals grow in a particular environmental condition for long, they will try to adjust with that particular climatic condition or environmental condition, and to adjust with that they internally as well as externally simultaneously physiologically develop certain characteristics which we say as adaptations. This we term as ecological adaptations. Ecological adaptations are the evolutionary processes whereby an organism becomes better able to survive and reproduce in its habitat and ecological niches. And broadly, we can classify all the living plants and animals according to their climatic condition or environmental condition where they grow, and specifically taking into consideration the amount of water or the water condition of the particular area where the organism grows, we can divide them into three different plant groups like hydrophytes, which grow in habitats where water is in excessive supply, mesophytes, where the plants grow in optimal supply of water, and xerophytes, where the plants grow with shortage of water. You know, these are three different conditions of availability of water that ultimately regulates and evolves the organisms in a way that they adjust to these circumstances and they develop the adaptations for these. If we come to the hydrophytes, these plants grow in excessive supply of water. In the water bodies, there are three different groups of plants growing. A group of plants which are remaining inside water, we term them to be submerged. A group of plants which are floating on the surface of water, like complete plants floating, and part of the plant, particularly the leaf portion and the flower portion, is floating. And the third group is amphibious hydrophytes, which can sustain inside the water as well as outside the water. So, they show amphibian characteristic. Now, let us see what can be the hydrophytic adaptations. If we see the plants adapting to excess supply of water, we shall see the plants should be very light, so that they can float on the surface or they can remain inside the water, float or swim. Like if we see the hydrophytic adaptations, we can divide them to three major sections: morphological adaptations, anatomical adaptation or adaptations at the tissue level, and then physiological adaptation. If we see to the morphological adaptation, we shall see the adaptations in roots, stems as well as leaves. When a plant has to swim on the surface, then there is no need for a root system well developed in one condition, because the parts of the plant are remaining in contact with water. Water will make its entry into the cells which are in contact with water. So, there is no requirement of roots. Then there is another group of plants which are floating on the surface of water. They need to balance themselves. So, there will be a bunch of roots, balancing roots developing. There is also a modification of root that looks like sponge and that contains a lot of air cavities or chambers. So, that stores air inside, which helps for respiration of the roots, and we can have respiratory roots. So, we shall see in the roots there is either least developed roots, or we shall have a number of adventitious roots which balances the plants, or a modified root that provides physiological support to this. Then the stems are very light, mechanical tissues are least developed, so that these are very soft. Leaves should be very small. Normally, there will be no cuticle in the submerged ones, but when the plants are free floating and they are amphibious, we shall see the leaves may have a thick layer of cuticle on the outer epidermis. And then we shall come to the anatomical adaptations, adaptations in the internal structures. We shall see the epidermal layer will be one layer normally. They are normally without cutin deposited on their surface. Stomata are distributed on the upper surface. Air chambers and parenchyma are present. Parenchyma provides buoyancy, so that the air present inside the air cavities inside the loosely arranged cells will help them to float or swim on the surface of water. Then one important thing is there is no need for a lot of conducting tissues, particularly with respect to xylem. So, minimum development of vascular tissues will be there, and as they remain inside the water, they are submerged, then there should be flexibility, otherwise they will break with flow of water, and for that there is lacking of mechanical tissues. Similarly, when we come to the xerophytes, these plants are adapted to grow in dry habitats, either in the dry, completely dry desert like condition, or in arid condition with scarcity of water and extreme temperatures. So, there are three categories of xerophytes we shall find. Ephemeral xerophytes, where these plants are normally annual plants, and interestingly they complete their life cycle in short period to avoid drought. So, within this short period of time they will grow, they will flower, they will reproduce and produce seeds, and the seeds will pass through the long drought condition, and there is least damage for their germination in the next, because if they germinate while the drought condition prevails, they cannot survive under the harsh conditions of the deserts. Then there is second group of plants which are referred to as the succulent xerophytes. Like the aloe vera you have seen, opuntia you have seen, the plants are having fleshy organs like roots, stems or leaves, and these fleshy organs will act as water storage organs. The gel inside aloe vera, which is widely used as components for a variety of Ayurvedic preparations, you see there is a lot of water stored inside, and this water stored is subsequently used by the plants when there is scarcity of water. Then the next group is woody xerophytes. These are non-succulent ones, these are drought resistant plants, and these are normally woody. They are having well developed vascular tissue systems, as well as they are also having well developed root systems. We shall see the adaptations of xerophytes also. This also we can discuss under 3 headings: anatomical adaptations, morphological adaptations and physiological adaptations. If we come to the morphological adaptations, we shall see these plants will have well developed root systems. The roots has to be well developed because they will spread across the soil system and collect whatever water they can get from the soil and store them. Then they have smaller leaves. We shall see in many cases leaves will develop and fall soon, or in other cases leaves will be modified to scale leaves, which are non-functional. They neither brings about photosynthesis or they can never carry out transpiration. In these cases, the stem is modified to leaf-like structures, phylloclades, which contains a lot of chlorophyll in their tissues, which brings about photosynthesis. So, we shall have the leaves modified to either scale leaves or leaves are deciduous, they will fall soon after they come, or they are very small ones. In case of existence of leaves, they are always highly cutinized and stomata are sunken type of stomata. Okay. These stomata are distributed, as a result of which they will not have normal type of transpiration. Internally also we shall see well developed vascular tissues, xylem and phloem are well developed. Xylem has to conduct water from the roots to the tip of the plant. We shall see the epidermal tissue system different from the mesophytes or the plants growing under normal supply of water. These epidermal cells are always cutinized. Stomata are sunken type. Sunken stomata are provided with epidermal hairs to prevent least evaporation or transpiration of water. Then if we shall see the physiological adaptation, these plants show a different dark reaction pathway. We shall say crassulacean acid metabolism pathway or CAM pathway, and in these cases stomata are opening in night time, because during the daytime the climatic condition is very harsh. If the stomata opens, whatever water is present inside the plants, there is possibility of transpirational loss. So, when the climatic condition becomes or the environmental condition becomes cooler at night, they will open, carbon dioxide will enter into the system, they will be converted to crassulacean acids and they are being stored inside the plant, storing carbon dioxide, and during daytime this carbon dioxide will be released, which will be taken by the normal photosynthetic pathway and produce carbohydrates. So, they show activities which may not be sufficient, but that is just enough for the plants to survive. Then we shall see there are certain adaptations among the animals too to these conditions, like in kangaroo rats, water shortage is met by oxidation of fat. Mammals have short limbs and small ears to avoid harsh cold conditions. In high altitude, low oxygen concentration is always there, and this is compensated by presence of more RBCs. So, if we have more red blood cells, they can take more oxygen and they can manage. We shall be discussing now about the population, its attributes and the interaction among the species. How do we define population? It is defined as the total number of individuals of a species in a defined geographical area sharing or competing for similar resources, potentially interbred or asexually reproduce. So, if we simply go for this or go for a simple definition, we shall say in a given area at a given time, if we see the individuals of only one species, then we refer it to be of a population. Several populations actually make a community. In reality, it is very difficult to find a single population in a given area. Supposing we shall say tick population in Bhubaneswar area. The tick species of Bhubaneswar area will be taken into consideration here, not other species. It does not also mean that there is no other species available over here. Then if the species is same, their requirement of light, their requirement for nutrition will be similar. So, there will be a competition among individual organisms and also organisms that are surrounding them. That will be intraspecific competition as well as interspecific competition. Okay. But if we consider about the single population, there will be competition for similar resources, because the plants will grow in the similar way. They require the similar nutrients. There will be always competition among them, which is not a healthy competition. And also they share the same gene pool and they interbreed, but for ecological purposes we also consider the asexual reproduction. When these organisms asexually reproduce and continue, these are also referred, they are brought under the population. A population has certain attributes which describe its characteristics, and these population attributes are like density. When we refer to density, we understand it is the number of individuals of a species per unit area or volume. If we say the population density, this is n by s, where n is the number of individuals of the population in a region and s is the unit area of the region. The unit area may be like a city, like I told you, the tick population of Bhubaneswar city, or we shall say the Sal population of India, like that. So, here the density, population density is the number of individuals by the unit area of the region. Then we come to the next attribute, which is very important and that is dependent on many factors, that is the population growth. When the population grows, the most important aspect is availability of nutrients. When availability of nutrition is there and that this is infinite, then we shall see the growth shows a different trend. But when the population growth we shall consider under a condition where nutrients are limited, then it will show a different way of growth, that we shall discuss a little later. Then the population also grows by addition of new ones, newly born ones, and added to the population. So, natality is an attribute which is also referred to as the birth rate and is expressed as the number of births per 1000 individuals of a population per a year. Similarly, we shall come to mortality. You see, when there is addition of new individuals by birth to a population, simultaneously there is loss to the population by death. Mortality refers to the death rate and it is expressed as the number of deaths per 1000 individuals of a population per a year. Then another important aspect is sex ratio. It is expressed in terms of male or female ones per 1000 individuals of a population. When there is an imbalance in the sex ratio, there is also imbalance with respect to the growth rate. Then comes immigration. It is the number of individuals of the same species that have come into the habitat from elsewhere at any given time. When the population starts in a new habitat, actually immigration will be more. More individuals will migrate from other places and they will survive there with the nutrients plentifully available, because the population is just starting over there. And when the population has already been settled, under that condition we shall see there will be immigration, but the immigration will be less. Then comes to the next one, emigration. Like individuals of a population comes from other places to the population and contribute to the population density. Similarly, individuals of the same species also leave the habitat, leave the area and go out elsewhere at any given period of time under consideration. And this will contribute actually to the population density. So, if we consider the population density, we shall see, it can be focused over here, we shall see the population density is dependent on 4 factors like the natality, the death rate, natality, the birth rate, mortality, the death rate, immigration and emigration. If we see the total population in a particular area, when there is immigration, the population is yet to be settled up, there it will be NT, the total number of individuals at a given time, plus the B plus I, that is the total births, plus the immigration I, minus D, the number of deaths per 1000, and the emigrants, number of individuals which leave the population to go elsewhere during that period of time. And if we simplify this, this says that the total number of individuals will be the total number of population plus the birth minus death plus immigration minus emigration. So, this will give us exactly the population density. If we come to the population growth, the size of the population depends upon food availability, predation pressure and weather. So, if we see to these conditions, there will be 2 different types of growth. One is exponential growth and the logistic growth. And if we see, these are been plotted against the growth as well as the period of time, we shall see different growth curves that will be either sigmoid curves or J-shaped curves when it is having limitation in the resources, nutrients, then it will show sigmoid curves. When there is unlimited resources, then it will be showing the J-shaped curves. Now, population density is regulated by the factors of immigration, natality and mortality. So, when we shall come to the exponential growth condition, where the growth is in geometrical scale, we shall see the resources, that is the food as well as the space, are unlimited, and nutrients are unlimited. We shall see they will be growing in a way that there is no restriction, carrying capacity will not come in the way. So, this will start like this, gradually the population will grow from 0, with minimum population it will start growing and grow and grow and grow, and that will be showing like a J. And in this condition, we shall see the differentiation, we shall take d n d by dt n, where n is the size of the population equals to the birth and the death rate, birth rate minus the death rate multiplied by the population size n. And if we say the birth minus death rate is the intrinsic growth rate represented by r, then d n by dt equals to r n. And here we shall say the population growth at a given time equals to n 0 E r t. Then I tell you about the logistic growth, where the resources become limited. We have resources available, there is no growth in the resources, no growth in the area where the population can grow, then there is no exponential growth of the population. Under this condition, we shall see gradually the population size, which grows very high at a given time, will come down, and that will settle at a point where there will be self-regulation. Cybernetics will play a role. Every ecosystem or environment or habitat has limited resources to support a particular maximum number of individuals, called its carrying capacity. So, when the carrying capacity is exceeded, then gradually we shall see the growth rate will come to settle down, and it will never exceed the carrying capacity, and it will rather come down. So, that shows a S-shaped or sigmoid curve rather than a J-shaped curve. Okay, when we plot n to the time t, the logistic growth shows sigmoid curve, and this is also referred to as Verhulst-Pearl logistic growth. So, it is given by this equation d n by dt equals to r n, which is k minus n by k, where n represents the population density at time t, that is the total number of individuals in unit area at a given time t, and r is the intrinsic rate of natural increase, that is the birth rate minus the death rate, and k is the carrying capacity. So, from this we shall see that a population can grow with a particular pattern depending upon the resources available. So, we shall discuss about the population interactions now. Within the population and outside the population, that is in a given area, I have told you there may not be a single population or individuals of only one species. There may be individuals of several species available, and there is always interaction between these individuals that may be from the same species or of different species. And we shall say population interactions are the interspecific interactions, that are interactions of populations of two different species. When we shall have different species and there is interaction among them, that can be subdivided to predation, competition, parasitism, commensalism, amensalism, mutualism, and we shall discuss one by one. Predation, it is an interspecific interaction where an animal called a predator kills and consumes the other weaker animal called the prey. If you are considering one animal population, then individuals of another population may eat for their sustenance. Why the animal eat another animal? The predators get elements for their growth and development and the energy for their living. They have to eat and they have to kill and consume other animals which are normally weaker to them, and they are referred to as prey. So, there is a relationship of prey and predators. Predators keep the prey population under control. If you visit a deer park, in any deer park around you, you will find if the deer park has started with 2 or 3 pairs of deers, within next 2-3 years, the population will grow like anything. You will find if it is not been under control, they will be growing a lot. But in nature actually it is not happening. When predators are available, they will always have a control on their population. They make a living out of that, and simultaneously there is a control on the population. And when the prey population is under control, then there will be not having stress that will be on the preys, because they all are having one type of nutrients requirement. And they have also, the predators have also a role in energy transfer across the trophic levels. When we consider the flow of energy in an ecosystem, this starts with the producers and continues with the consumers. So, they go from one trophic level, one nutrient level to the other nutrient levels. So, there is always a food chain coming out of that. But if one trophic level is missing, then the entire system is going to be disturbed. Then we shall come to the next, competition. Competition is a very interesting interaction, whereas both the competitors suffer, because the competition is acute when there is intraspecific competition. There is competition for similar nutrition, similar resources, but when it is interspecific competition, which we can say there is a healthy competition, competition will occur for maybe for the same resources like light, like nutrition, like shelter, etc. So, the next we shall discuss is parasitism. It is the mode of interaction between two species where the parasite depends on the host for shelter and nutrition and causes harm to the host, like a parasite growing in our body that takes shelter in our body, derives nutrition from our body, simultaneously causes diseases to us. That is referred to as parasitism. Then we shall discuss about commensalism. In this interaction, one species is benefited without any harm to the other. You see, on the body of other one organism, other organisms may grow. An algae growing on the body of a sea turtle. So, there it is not causing any harm to the sea turtle, Of course, it takes the burden of weight, but otherwise it is not doing any harm like any disease to the other. There we shall say this as commensalism. Epiphytes, epiphytic plants grow on other plants, just they take shelter, but they do not do any harm. Then comes the amensalism. In this case, one species is harmed and the other species is not affected. One species is harmed, you see it will be harming, but the other is not actually getting benefit. This is more like the parasitism. Mutualism, this is a very interesting condition where we shall see two interacting species are benefited from each other, like the mycorrhiza, lichen, etc. We also term this symbiotic relationship. An algal species and a fungal species, they make a living together. The algal species are autotrophic and they produce photosynthesis, taking light and other raw materials from nature, and the fungal partner is providing shelter to the algal partner, gives protection and derives nutrition from it, and they live like one organism. Similarly, mycorrhiza, we see these are growing in the roots of other plants. This fungus either inside the cells of the root or outside, they protect the roots, they provides nitrogen in bioavailable form. So, with this we actually come to an end of this chapter. We shall go for a brief review. I have already told you that population is a group of individuals of one species growing in a particular area at a particular time. And when the population is growing in an area, this is interacting with its non-living environment, and they have also interaction with the living environment, the environment comprising of biotic as well as abiotic factors. The population has certain characteristics, like the population shows natality, the population shows mortality, there is immigration into the population, emigration out of the population, and these all together they contribute to the population density or population growth. Then one important aspect in the growth of population is availability of resources, and there is availability of shelter. So, for food, for the food as well as the shelter will decide the growth of the population, and population growth we can divide into two types: exponential growth, which will always show a J-shaped curve, and logistic growth, which will show a sigmoid curve. Populations will interact among themselves. There will be interaction among the same individuals, but there is simultaneously interaction between other individuals of other populations, that can be of predation, competition, parasitism, commensalism, amensalism and mutualism. Thank you very much, students.